a peace proposal amid European recognition of Palestinian statehood. This marks Netanyahu's fourth visit since Trump has returned to office as Israel seeks to shore up U.S. support while facing growing criticism. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed building a joint aerial defense shield with its European partners to counter threats from Russia. Kyiv argues its experience with airborne threats would help NATO amid Russia's recent airspace incursions in Poland and the Baltic states, which Russia denies. The European Union has now confirmed that it has reinstated sanctions against Iran, including freezing assets of the Iranian central bank, imposing travel bans on officials, banning crude oil and gold transactions. Following a similar move by the United Nations, E3 further initiated the sanctions over alleged violations of the 2015 nuclear deal, which Iran denies. Iran has executed Bahman Shubi Asl today for allegedly spying for Israel's Mossad, with the Iranian Supreme Court upholding his death sentence on charges of corruption on earth. The execution marks at least the 10th such case in recent months amid escalating tensions between Iran and Israel. Nepal has imposed travel bans on former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and 4 former senior officials. The youth-led protests over a social media ban, economic hardship, and corruption has left at least 73 people dead, burned parliament government offices, and forced the government to collapse. Moldova's pro-EU ruling party has scored a resounding victory over its Russian-leaning rival in a key parliamentary election. These reports are reported by their official results. The win is seen as a strong endorsement of Moldova's bid to join the European Union. At least 4 people have been killed and 8 wounded in a shooting at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township in Michigan, U.S., when gunmen rammed a vehicle into the building, opened fire, and set it alight. Officers then engaged and killed him, while investigators warned that more victims may still be found. Former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra has petitioned for a royal pardon for his 1-year jail sentence after returning from 15 years of self-exile. The ex-Prime Minister was jailed after the Supreme Court ruled he had not served his original 8-year sentence. This follows the removal of his daughter, former Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, last month. Now we move on. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is speaking at the Warsaw Security Forum. He stated that Ukraine would like to build a joint aerial defense shield with its European partners to protect against threats from Russia. This statement comes as reports of drone incursions along NATO's eastern flank have become increasingly frequent. Ukraine intends to work with Poland and other European partners to establish a reliable defense system against aerial threats. Earlier, Russia launched a massive drone attack on Ukrainian cities, killing several people and leaving many injured. Drone sightings have become more common across Eastern Europe, once again sparking urgent discussions around European security. Further, President Zelensky also noted that he believes U.S. President Donald Trump's attitude towards European and Ukrainian security has changed. Let's listen in to what President Zelensky has said.
The drone wave against Poland on the night of September 10 was a test not only for Poland but for all NATO. Russian jets violated Estonia's airspace, and the new drone incidents in northern Europe are another test for NATO as a whole. Russia is testing how far it can go. It wants to shift attention away from the brutal war it countries against Ukraine. Ukraine proposes to Poland and all our partners to build a joint, truly reliable shield against Russian aerial threats. And this is possible. Ukraine can counter all types of Russian drones and missiles. And if we act together in the region, we will have enough weapons and production capacity for these. If Russia loses the ability to strike in the skies, it will be unable to continue the war.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this news that has just come in, what are the potential benefits and challenges for Ukraine calling to build a joint aerial defense shield with their European allies?
Asuma, good to be with you again.
Thank you.
This whole discussion, there is one point that's been made by others that is rather important to remember, is that when the Russians are sending drones, or it appears even though they may deny that, say it's a mistake, into Poland, when we are seeing drones going into Copenhagen, even though they're then saying that may be someone locally, we have to look at the disruption that that brings, because then planes are grounded, things are checked out. And going back to the point in regard to the Polish border, while that happens, then what it means, it disrupts any assets that may be then assigned to Ukraine itself, and then NATO have to then look at, do we need those assets ourselves in regard to defending any nation that's joined in with the NATO alliance? So all of that then is playing out. And of course, no, it's not surprising that Ukraine are turning around and saying, look, we need air defenses. We are then pushing for that because of the tit-for-tat drone attacks that are happening into the Ukraine. And then, of course, Ukraine has been rather successful in doing, and with their attacks into Russia and attacking the infrastructure of Russia in regard to oil and gas. That's a fact. That's what's going on. The other fact is that even though Russia may have, of course, got access to more soldiers, military hardware, their progress into Ukraine has been extremely slow, and that it appears that the Russian army has been extremely good at keeping that progress slow, and also in regions pushing back. So as we have discussed before, and especially when the weather changes and it becomes, into winter, when hardware can get bogged down, we are then seeing potentially this stalemate. But as President Trump has said, Zelensky just alluded to that his attitude towards Ukraine is then changing, because he has been reliant on saying, well, look, I've got a good relationship with Putin. We got on well in my first administration. And of course, then it's been all, Russia, and all these other accusations that have been, that are not true in regard to him and how the Democrats accused him of that. So Trump is then relational. He's frustrated because he thought he could solve this quickly, and Putin is still firing. They are still attacking Ukraine. And now with the potentially providing Tomahawk missiles, which Zelensky has asked for, and all of that, and with Russia turning around saying, well, who is going to be responsible for giving the orders on these? And remember, these are missiles that can go 1,000 miles, if my own research is correct. They've been used in theaters of war, fired about 2,350 times. They are a proven missile. So all of this is then up to discussion, and on the sidelines, people, are getting killed on both sides. There is destruction within the Ukraine. The Russian economy is not in a good place whatsoever, and we all want this war to end, and that doesn't seem to be happening likely at the moment. However, by Zelensky turning around and saying, I want air defense in Ukraine, then that could really deter in the future any more incursions from Russia in this regard. Because who has control of the air then has control of what is happening on the ground. Asuma.
And Mark, you've already touched upon this, but what do you think? What was the basis of President Zelensky saying that America, or particularly President Trump's attitude, he thinks is changing towards or warming up towards Ukraine? What do you think? Why did he say that?
Well, I think, as I've alluded to just a few seconds ago, is that I think there is frustration. I think there is frustration on part, personally, of Trump personally. Remember, he will be getting intel. He will be getting intel and looking at pictures of the awful devastation and the amount of lives that are lost on the Ukrainian and the Russian side. If you are a true humanitarian and human, you're going to be looking at this. Now, unfortunately, since February 22, when the Russians invaded, and of course under the Biden regime, and Trump always says this, you know, they did nothing. There's no negotiations whatsoever. We're just going to pile weapons into the Ukraine, and there is a heck of a lot to unpack there in regard to the Democrats, whether it's, as I said earlier, Russia, Hunter Biden laptop, Burisma, the whole caboodle. But we are living in a high stakes real world game that has changed very much. And I think it comes down to sheer frustration. Now, the other thing is, and I hope not, if it means that people like Lindsey Graham are managing to whisper into the administration's ear, if not into the Trump ear personally, then we also have a problem, as he's such a war hawk, and there will be others. Then there will be others like him. And I am not excusing the fact that Russia invaded a sovereign country, but there's so much history to then work out in regard to on the Ukrainian border and Russia. Do they speak Russian? What country do they want to be part of? And also when we saw the breakup of the Soviet Union, all of this is still playing out, Asuma, and very often within the West, we may not fully understand that, even though clearly other analysts do, Asuma.
Right. With that, thank you very much, Mark, for joining us and sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for. And now we stay on this topic. The Kremlin has responded to reports that the United States may supply Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, saying that it has heard the claims but remains uncertain on who would be providing the target plans, whether it would be the Americans or Ukrainians. Additionally, Moscow has stressed that these missiles would not be a panacea and are not likely to change the situation on the battlefield. This comes as Ukraine is expected to receive American BGM-109 Tomahawk missiles, enabling strikes deep into Russian territory. U.S. President Donald Trump further has said that who had previously denied Ukraine's requests for long-range missiles has reportedly given the green light for long-range attacks, as he's reportedly frustrated by President Putin's refusal to engage in peace talks. This follows a closed-door meeting that he held with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last week. Now, for this discussion, we go back to Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for staying with us. Now, we don't know who and when will this exactly Tomahawk cruise missiles will be delivered to Ukraine. But if it does, what strategic impact could this do? And Ukraine, will this deter Russia in how Ukraine wants it to?
Well, you use the word panacea, and that comes from the Russian side by saying this would not be a panacea. In other words, this will not then, in their eyes, they're turning around and saying, well, if Ukraine has this, then of course, and it will be a game changer, but in their eyes, it's saying, well, we're not going to stop this war. You are now stepping up this. And as you have just read out in that report, and the Russians have said, as we were just saying earlier, that by actually supplying Tomahawk weapons, the Russians have already alluded on a propaganda level to turn around and say, well, who is actually giving the targets in regard to our country? And that if Americans are involved, or any other NATO country is involved in that, then it will be seen as an act of war. So this whole escalation, and again, I suppose ideally for some, right, well, we'll give a Tomahawk weapon. We want this to be seen as a threat, because if we can then fire up to 1,000 miles into Russian territory, then that should be a threat. And also within that technology, depending on the data control of a missile, it then if we read various reports, you read about it, then has the ability to hover in a particular area, and then be given a final instruction of where to go. That's if the technology then works. And as I said earlier, they have been used 2,350 times. It is, the unfortunate thing is people then feel pushed. The President Trump says that. Remember that when they are providing these missiles, NATO, the Ukraine then have to pay for them. This isn't, well, we're just going to give you these missiles for free. I think that has also been out there in the Trump lexicon in what he has then been saying and explaining. Of course, all of this is dangerous. It is dangerous, as in also to look at what the technology that Russia has, which is extensive in regard to their missile systems. So you fire one Tomahawk at a Russian target, what the Russians going to do, then fire a missile into Central Europe. Well, frankly, God forbid, but this is what everyone is trying to avoid. But the frustration levels, I'm just surmising here, within President Trump himself, is off the charts, getting way off the charts, because he's turning around and saying, I'm trying to have this conversation with Vladimir. Then, will you stop this? We have talked about this before, which is trying to get people around the table, hence being last in Ankara in Turkey, where it's just prisoner exchanges. Asuma.
Right. Thank you, Mark, for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for a discussion. Now we move on to Europe. Russia has reacted to the Moldova elections and has claimed that there were too few polling stations provided in Russia and that hundreds of thousands of Moldovans were prevented from voting. This comes as the pro-European party of Moldovan President Maia Sandu has claimed that victory and a new majority in parliament in elections seen as critical for her country's future path to the EU. In addition, Russia has stated that unnamed political forces have raised concerns about alleged electoral violations. The Kremlin also issued a warning regarding Moldova's breakaway Russia-backed Transnistria region, saying provocations there cannot be ruled out. Now we stay in Europe. Britain is considering tougher rules for migrants seeking permanent residency, with the government looking to require applicants to prove their contribution to society. UK Interior Minister Shabana Mahmood will outline proposals to make indefinite leave to remain conditional on factors like social security contributions, clean criminal records, English proficiency, and community volunteering. Currently, most migrants can apply for permanent residency after 5 years, but the government's plan would link settlement to paying taxes, not claiming benefits, and maintaining a record of positive community engagement. A consultation on the changes is expected later this year. The move follows rising popularity for Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, which has pushed to scrap indefinite leave to remain in favor of renewable 5-year work visas. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Labour have also toughened immigration policies in response, while Starmer accuses Reform UK of promoting policies that could tear the country apart. Immigration remains a key issue for British voters, with net arrivals having reached record levels since the country left the European Union. Now we go back to Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for staying with us. Now, how is this rising popularity of Reform UK Party and the immigration stances on both the Conservative and Labour parties influencing the political landscape in UK?
The whole discussion of legal migration has been in this country since 1997, since Tony Blair came into power. He then left in 2007 and Gordon Brown then took over. They then lost the election in 2010. Previously from then, the 14 years of a conservative, inverted commas, government were supposed to also sort this out. Blair opened the gates in regard to migration from Europe, and then that has continued. And we have also seen in this country 70,000 plus illegal immigrants coming over by boats over the channel. In the previous year, and particularly under the Boris Johnson premiership, legal migration in regard to people coming over here to do university courses, etc., or coming to do jobs and then bringing all their dependents, has then gone off the charts as well. And that, where we've seen an increase, I think, from the year ending 2024, the fact that 750,000 came over, then that is hidden within the discussion and the lexicon. The borders of the UK, to many, feel very, very open and are not secure, and they need to get a handle on this. And it's very, very easy to throw tropes around, throw words around of that anyone that raises this is being, is basically racist and all this kind of nonsense. We have to get a grip on it. And it's all very well when we look at the words of Starmer saying, well, you're dividing the country. Well, you are Prime Minister of this country. You are supposed to put the needs of this country first. But unfortunately, you didn't, because on the 23rd of June, 17,410,752 people, with a majority of over 1 million, voted to leave in a democratic vote the European Union. And the Prime Minister, as he now is, Starmer, from 2016, did whatever he could, as when he was in the Corbyn cabinet and then becoming leader of the Labour Party, to get this country back into Europe in virtually in name only. And that is what he has been doing. Now, we signed a deal with France, gave them millions of pounds to stop the illegal immigration coming over. That has not happened. And also this supposedly, 300 in and 1 out. That is a complete failure. It's not a difficult job to do if you actually believe in having borders. And the problem is when you have an ideology that is extreme left-wing, Fabian and socialist, then if you believe in pushing towards taking democracy away from people because you do not believe that the little people can actually cope with the responsibility of that, then you create this kind of system. Now, the present Home Secretary has been in for 3 weeks. Well, okay, good luck to it. Be very, very good if she decides to clamp down on this and clamp down on that. And one of the reasons why is because a populist party, I would say bordering on establishment, such as Reform, then have gained such momentum. We also then have Advanced UK. We also have people like Rupert Lowe now as an independent MP talking about these issues. Asuma.
Yeah, Mark, can you also tell us, you've already told us why government is making all the changes, what's behind it, but can you tell us a little bit also about the voter behavior? How do you think this has affected the voter behavior in UK?
I think, 4 million people voted for Reform UK in the last election, and with our first past the post, it only then brought in 5 MPs at that time. They now have 5 MPs within Reform. So that is what it did. We've recently had a big march in London, as you know, Unite for Kingdom. They are watching all of this. They know where the votes could be going. In the last election, the Labour Party only got, I think, 33% of the vote, which must mean about 10 million votes. There are some of those Labour seats, people like Wes Streeting, for argument's sake, who runs the NHS, and even Angela Rayner, who's just left the cabinet in disgrace, etc. They are hanging on by just a few votes in various constituencies, which means that they are looking at their position and the votes that they would then lose, which means that they would be out of office. And I would say to them, are you wanting to put the country first, or is it all about your own political expediency?
Yes.
That, Asuma, is why they are worried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us and sharing your insight throughout our news today. Thank you very much. Now we move on. The United States and Mexico have launched a new bilateral initiative aimed at disrupting the flow of illicit firearms across their shared border. According to this new initiative, Mexico will expand its use of U.S. tracing tools such as trace and ballistic imaging technology to 32 states, while both countries will increase joint investigations, prosecutions, and intelligence sharing. The initiative also calls for deeper bilateral investigations and a ramp up of U.S. inspections to stop the southbound smuggling of weapons, which is reportedly a key enabler of cartel violence in Mexico. United States Ambassador to Mexico Ronald Johnson has stated that for the first time, the U.S.-Mexico are implementing joint inspections, real-time information sharing, and expanded investigations to stop weapons fueling cartels. He has also said that this is a historic cooperation to protect both nations. Now we move on to Asia. Chinese Foreign Ministry has issued a statement on Hong Kong activist Nathan Law's denial of entry into Singapore. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun has stated that every country has the right to independently manage entry and exit. He has also called the activist a destabilizing force. Earlier, Singapore has denied entry to Nathan Law, who lives in exile in the UK. The activist was traveling to attend a conference but was detained at the border hours before being deported. Nathan Law said that the denial of entry was for political reasons and accused China of being involved in the matter. However, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has denied any familiarity with the situation. Let's listen into what Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said.
我不了解你提到的有关情况，各国有权自主进行出入境管理。你提到的这个人是被香港警方依法通缉的反中乱港分子。
Well, this is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.